okay? And I summarized the studies from the World Health Organization and from several other journals. Studies that confirm that children that have complications from measles or that die from measles have low quantities of vitamin A. Their nutritional status is very low for vitamin A, and vitamin A will protect babies, will protect children from complications and death associated with measles. And so they went and did a study, for example, where they had like 200,000 kids, and they broke them up into two groups. And this was in Africa. And these kids were coming into the hospital with measles. And they gave one group standard treatment. They gave the other group standard treatment plus high doses of vitamin A. And the group that received the standard treatment plus the high doses of vitamin A had reduction in mortality associated with the measles. So vitamin A is very important. And today, if we didn't vaccinate children in the United States, the best thing that you could do to protect, not against measles, you're still going to contract measles. Measles is very contagious. You're not going to stop children from being that are exposed to measles from contracting that disease. You'll never stop them from contracting the disease. And you don't want to stop them from contracting the disease, because I talked earlier that contracting the disease will offer you many benefits in later life. It will protect you against cancer. It will protect you against coronary heart disease. But it will protect you if you take high doses of vitamin A and you are exposed to measles and you do get measles. It will protect you from complications of the disease, and it will protect you from mortality.
Today, vitamin C is one of my primary tools as a medical doctor, and since I've discovered it, it's really been probably the best medication that I've ever used on myself or my patients. And I'm not the first to discover this. There have been many for decades before me, and one of the first to really embrace it and write about it and use it in all kinds of different situations was Dr. Fred Klenner. And a lot of people don't hear about Dr. Klenner because his writing is not something that circulates in conventional medical realms, because he was pretty forthright about calling the doctors of his time quacks. You know, he just turned that term right around on them and showed in no uncertain terms that what they were doing was incredibly backwards and harmful. When he was curing cases of paralytic polio, he was using antibiotics, he was using steroids, and he was also using very high doses of intravenous or intramuscular vitamin C. And he outlines, there's copious amounts of writing of his, and he outlines in great detail exactly what his protocols were and how well they worked case after case after case. In not just polio, but influenza. He used it during pregnancy in very high doses, all throughout pregnancy, before delivery. Using vitamin C in infants, children, and adults who have whooping cough doesn't make the cough go away. It doesn't treat it like, say, some antibiotic could maybe treat a staph infection. It basically, what it does is it energizes the immune system, because, like I said, it gives the neutrophils the energy that it needs. And there's something called apoptosis, which is what cells that need to die do. And so they basically involute so that they don't spill their caustic contents inside your body. If you don't have vitamin C, those neutrophils and macrophages that have just eaten these particles that are trying to infect you will just explode and cause even more inflammation. So vitamin C decreases inflammation in lots of ways. That's one. It's a direct antioxidant. So whooping cough is a toxin-mediated disease. You neutralize the toxin by putting electrons in there, and you notice a difference. It actually loosens up the secretions in the lung within 24 to 48 hours. The secretions become thinner and more watery. And it also, again, it frees up the liver to do its job. So as a toxin neutralizer and an immune system enhancer, and it also gives tissues the strength. You can't make collagen without adequate amounts of vitamin C. So it's not a miracle, and I'm very clear with parents before I get going, but so far there's been 100% success rate. No babies have died. I've treated babies as young as 2 weeks old, and it's no picnic. It's a nail-biting experience, But when the medical system has done everything they can do and the child is still extremely sick and the parents are looking for help, they often come to me, and sometimes they come to me before they go to the medical system because they're that confident in what they want. And you can read the testimonials when I ask parents to write testimonials, I don't say to talk about me. I say I want you to talk about you, what your fear level was, what you expected, what the vitamin C did, and how you feel now. And so that's really what the testimonials are intended to do, is to just show other parents what vitamin C can do. It's not a miracle, but it makes the baby so that they're not turning blue anymore, they're not gasping for air, the coughs become manageable, your nights become easier. They're not always easy. There's a week where there's a lot of sleepless time during that 1 week.
The immune system knows how to work with what was available naturally. It didn't have to wait until nutraceutical industry shows up in the last 50 years to make sure that the immune system works. So the nutrients that we must pay attention as far as viral diseases are concerned are vitamin A and vitamin C. For antibacterial ones, vitamin D is very important, as well as gut health, which meaning probiotics, because that helps utilize the vitamin D, and they work synergistically. Now, actually, it's kind of silly to talk about each vitamin separately, because once you go through the list, you see that all of them are necessary one way or another. And it's not only those vitamins, like the alphabetic list of vitamins, but also microelements, minerals, phytonutrients, pretty much everything in between, the whole gamut of nutrition and lifestyle.
Every parent and every doctor wants to have healthy kids. So how do you do it? Some of the ways sound so simple, but they're actually really hard. So the first thing is that we need to feed our kids real food. So real food for babies means breast milk exclusively, and real food for kids means food that is in its recognizable form. And that's not a very exciting thing to say, feed your kids food, but the very vast majority of children are not actually eating food. So if you even just look at the guidelines for how many vegetables kids are supposed to have, I recently did an interview in a middle school, and I talked to more than a dozen kids. Not a single child in that school had eaten a single vegetable as of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're supposed to be eating vegetables with every meal because we know healthy vegetables help you have a healthy microbiome, help you have a healthy brain. So kids need to eat real food. We need to avoid toxins. 2 of those toxins, which are given like candy, are acetaminophen, the main ingredient in Tylenol, and antibiotics. Kids need to have as much exercise and outdoor time as possible. They need sunlight, they need vitamin D. But we have kids in chairs sitting all day when our bodies want to move and be outside. We need to have kids playing in the dirt, let them get dirty, let them get messy. And I'm not saying that because I think kids should wallow in mud. I'm saying that because we know that that exposure to dirt helps you create a better immune system and reduces your risk of autoimmune disorders.
How do you save children's lives? Well, you boost their nutrition to activate the genetic code that they all have that causes the expression of their immunology, which gives them the adaptive response to exposure to viruses in the wild. So with vitamin D, you're activating this huge portion of their gene code. You're actually invoking the power of their genetics to make them able to respond in a symptomless way. In other words, they don't get sick, they don't have a fever, they don't even know they were infected, but now they're immune because they have that built-in immunology system, that nanotechnology of human biology. And it's activated with things like vitamin D.
In February of 2013, I get the JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association. I'm a member just to keep track of what's going on. And that was on my desk, and I'm looking at this, and anytime I see the word autism in a study, I want to know what they're doing because we need more studies. So here's a huge study out of Norway. I think it was 60,000 moms, and the children followed for an average of 6 years. And they looked at the rate of autism in the moms who took folate while they were pregnant and the moms who didn't. It was a huge study, prospective, long-term, comparing these two groups. And
what is folate?
So folate is a B vitamin, B3, and we've known that you need folate to prevent huge brain defects, anencephaly, meningomyelocele, those sorts of things. So it's obviously important for something to do with brain. And we've been giving folate for well over a decade, maybe two, for pregnancy. And but this was a great study to show the value. And the moms who took folate while they were pregnant, their autism rate was 1 in 1,000. And the moms who didn't, it was 1 in 500. So this is 2013. And I'm thinking, I just read it's 1 in 150 here in the U.S. What's the difference? Why is it 1 in 1,000? Because we give folate in the U.S. So why is it 1 in 1,000 there and it's 1 in 150 here? That was the aha, right? But there was no mention of that in the article. So I pulled up the vaccine schedule for Norway, and they don't do the hepatitis B vaccine. I'm not saying that's the whole reason, because they do breastfeed longer and much higher breastfeeding rates there. We know breastfeeding is protective. They have less toxins. There's no GMOs, or at least I don't think there are. So I'm sure there's lots of variables, but the exciting thing about that is just think about it, Ty. If we could do a few things here in the U.S. and get our rate from now 1 in 50 back to 1 in 1,000, how wonderful would that be? I mean, you're talking, we now have over 1 million autistic kids. We're creating over 100,000 a year with our current program of whatever it is that we're doing that's creating this. I do believe, this is a talk about vaccines, that's a big piece of the puzzle, but that's not the only piece. It's toxins, 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 and it's getting your nutrients, like folate in that study. It's actually good to have methylfolate, not regular folate for most people. And it's boosting the immune system. It's all about having a healthy immune system. That's what we need.
That's a recurring theme. As Dr. Paul Thomas just mentioned, the key to preventing disease is a healthy immune system. That's actually part of the theory behind vaccinations, stimulating the immune system and helping it to recognize various diseases. Dr. Thomas is a board-certified pediatrician who's also the co-author, along with Dr. Jennifer Margulis, of a book entitled The Vaccine Friendly Plan, which is a selective and delayed vaccine schedule for those patients that do want to vaccinate, but not according to the current full CDC vaccine schedule.
I'll go back to 2008. I'm starting my new practice, and what I set up was what I've outlined in this book, The Vaccine Friendly Plan. And that is a way to vaccinate that's a little gentler, way less toxic. So you don't do hepatitis B for newborns who don't need it, right? And we know. Our OBGYN colleagues have done a great job of testing women who are about to have a baby, and we know when they're delivering that they don't have hepatitis B. So that baby does not need that vaccine. Let's do that one when they're preteen, before they're sexually active, or early teens. So that one you wait. You also wait on polio, not because I'm against the polio vaccine. The elder generation, I have a nurse who's retired who lived through the polio era, and my own mom, in fact, and they were both like, and she's a nurse, they were both like, oh, I don't know about the polio, you better do the polio. But here's the fact. There hasn't been a case of polio acquired in the United States since 1979. There is no risk. If we want to do it, we can still do it later when the immune system is more developed, when you're not bombarding that little baby's developing immune system with so many challenges. So we wait on the polio. We don't do the rotavirus. So the rotavirus vaccine, that's
that's the one you were mentioning that Offit developed?
Offit developed the initial one. You're putting a live virus that's contaminated. These vaccines are not pure. They're contaminated with other viruses. Both the vaccines that are on the market have been proven to be contaminated. It makes no sense. So we're skipping Hep B, polio, rotavirus. And in the vaccine-friendly plan, what we are focusing on is the Tdap, mostly because of the pertussis. At 2 months, you do the Hib, which is preventing Haemophilus type B. We'll talk a little more about that. And the Tdap. So you're protecting against tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. The tetanus and the diphtheria are not an issue, really, for a kid that age, but it's the pertussis. You don't want that whooping cough and death, those 5 deaths per year or whatever. And then, rather than doing the Prevnar, which is the other serious bacterial disease, can be caused by pneumococcus. So the Prevnar 13, it replaced the Prevnar 7. That will prevent some meningitis and some serious infection, as will the Hib. Instead of doing them at the same time at 2 months, we move the Prevnar to 3 months. It also contains aluminum. So at 2 months, you're injecting Hib, which is a fairly safe vaccine, Tdap, which has too much aluminum, and then at 3 months, you do the other aluminum one, the Prevnar, and you repeat that 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then you do your final Prevnar and Hib at a year. That's still a lot of vaccines, but it's half of what it would have been.
What about MMR? Yeah, I don't remember, you didn't mention MMR.
So, yes, so for on the vaccine-friendly plan, I made a somewhat arbitrary decision. That one worried me. I just decided I'm going to wait till age 3 because I had never seen a child regress into autism after age 3. Now, that was in 2008. I now have over 13,000 patients in my practice. I acquire all the patients in the area who want informed consent, who want to vaccinate differently. I acquire a lot of families who have autism in their family because, you know, they're not getting the kind of care they need. And I have since heard one story of a child, the parents did exactly what I was thinking of doing, which so wait till age 3, then do the MMR. And so far, in my own population, that's been fine. We haven't had any new autism in over 1,000 patients who followed the vaccine-friendly plan. But I did have one